part the result of criminal acts engaged in 150 years ago, which resulted in the commercial enslavement of African Americans who were summarily claimed as chattels back in U.S. government debt in wake of the Civil War. And despite every act of abolition and declaration of prohibition against both peonage and slavery, it has been the policy of the U.S. government to enslave its citizens and to operate as a rogue state among the nations of the world. And instead of freeing African Americans, the sum total result of the Civil War was to vastly expand public sector ownership of slaves, giving rise to the outrageous and improper claims that have been made against the American states and the American state citizens that we are dealing with today. It is uniquely fitting that the Grand Army of the Republic is recalled to settle this circumstance in favor of the people. Attachments: Civil Orders, Anna Maria Wilhelmina, Hanna Sophia Ritzinger von Ritzenstein von Letlow Verbeck, private attorney in service to His Holiness Pope Francis. Documents: The United States isn't a country, it is a corporation, the hidden Vatican Crown Empire. This is included in the letter sent to Barack H. Obama. And you will find this letter on your flash drive that most of you have gotten from Dr. Naila from the House of Reawakening Minds. And you can read it in full yourself and see it in harmony also with what was shared with Alamo in his article that he wrote during the Reagan administration, which I shared with you, etc. And so you can see today people are becoming more and more conscious of the real and actual politics that has actually been injuring the people, not supporting the people. It's actually been robbing the people, not supporting the people. That has actually been criminally stealing the people's estates and their labor, not serving the people. But in fact, we're serving the people up to injury, serving people up to poverty, serving the people up to torture, serving the people up to human trafficking, etc., and bloodletting, etc. In fact, up to this very day. So we have a lot of work to do in relationship to helping to liberate fallen humanity, which is why some of these subject matters that a lot of people won't deal with, we deal with them at the House of Reawakening Minds, with the uplifting of fallen humanity. And this gives you some insight into the politics that you see taking place around the world. And a lot of these constructed, planned, and strategically executed so-called race problems that they're having around the planet to cause division and destruction, etc. These are Inquisition operations. I yield the floor to you, Dr. Nail.
I'm going to look to see if there are any burning questions that you like. There are a lot of comments, but while I'm looking, this will be a good time for any questions. I know some of you have been writing in the chat, but unfortunately, what happens as the chat responses come in, some of the older ones I can't get to. So I'm trying to.
We apologize for not being able to respond to all the chat because there's so many people from around the world that listen to the House of Reawakening Minds, and of course we can't get to all of them. So we try to deal with answering some of the generalized overall questions and concerns of the people to the degree that we can share any thoughts of for helping or uplifting the people. But again, one of the problems that we had was that, again, that the people, many of the people just didn't know that the United States is not a country. That it's a private corporation belonging to the Popes of Rome that has been occupying under Inquisition operations the Western Hemisphere. And that would include Canada Corporation and the United States corporation operations, and then branched out against the rest of the people of the world. That's the truth. Unfortunate truth, but it is the truth. So, for us to solve problems, both political and economical, of the world, we got to know the source of the problem. And much of that source has been shared with you tonight. Not that it hasn't been shared with you before, but because when you see a lot of your hybrid Europeans, and priests starting to tell some of the truths because they're being injured now too. That gives people encouragement to, or helps people to be encouraged to start studying and researching for themselves and not accepting what we say without research. We always encourage you to do your own study and research and find out for yourself. Logically, as your minds change due to being made aware of things that prior to exposing of these things, some of you didn't know, the changing of your mind will change the conditions and the way that you communicate with a lot of these agencies that you thought was government, and discovering that they're actually circle church curia members of the Vatican that were actually waging war on you, the people. And a lot of people that thought that these agencies were just waging war on the Aboriginal people have found out that they've been sacrificing them, etc. And this is again why you see a lot of the hybrid Europeans starting to tell a lot of the political truths that would not be in the mainstream news venues, etc., because they're being thrown under the bus. But it also demonstrates to you that they knew this stuff all the time. But when they were benefiting from the fraud of the U.S. democracy, they weren't telling our people anything, were they? They were talking about, vote for this platform, vote the Democratic Party, etc., not knowing that these were actually Klan members of the Knights of Columbus under the Vatican operations to actually overthrow the Republic, which is why you won't see the political operatives under the Vatican order refer to the Republic order of the Constitution. They will always refer to the U.S. democracy, which is actually a demon platform for the papacy. And of course, we don't have to tell you about the injuries that they've been causing on the people, because the evidence is self-evident. You don't even have to do deep research. All you got to do is go to all the communities and look at the miseries and the suffering and the broken families and the drug problems and the alcohol problems and the people being murdered on the street by people that they thought were law officers, etc. And now these are operations of Rome. The setup. Unfortunate truth, but it's the truth. You can't fix anything if you don't start recognizing what the origin.
Here is a question.
Yeah.
BD Bay, how can we do the reversion of state as individuals prior to / while forming government structure?
It's sort of like once you start cleaning things up, it's like things fall in place. We don't need to so much reinvent the wheel. We need to clean the wheel up, clean the wagon up, and take it out. As an example, let me give you an example. People not knowing the true history of Iberia or Europe, etc., are under the in general impression that after Napoleonic Wars, their perception is that Europe is dealing mostly with Albion Paleolithic Europeans, or what we call modern man, when in fact the original Europeans are Iberians, etc., or Moors. Picts, the Dubs, the Moors. That's why when you do research into Phoenicia or Iberia, which is actually the European peninsula, you'll see all the coats of arms of the nobles that were overthrown. And you're going back to Napoleon and the Napoleonic Wars, you'll find that they were all Moors. All the coats of arms. And then those of you who do have some, what you would call relatively comprehensive libraries, you go into some of the work of Joel A. Rogers, who's one of the most awarded scholars of Nature Knows No Color Line. And you will also see the coats of arms of Iberia or Europe, and they're actually Moors. George Massey is another scholar
Gerald
whose work,
Gerald Massey.
Gerald Massey, yeah. And there's others, but most of our people have been, spooked away from, reestablishing libraries because the church, through the Popes of Rome, have been for so many years burning books, banning books, with their expurgatorius and prohibitorum policies of the Inquisition. And so in the last maybe 7 or 8 generations of the Aboriginal people, contrary to our own culture, very few of our people have libraries in their homes anymore. And then they only, by training, have only been accepting, say, Bibles, Korans, and Torahs as the only books that they were allowed to read. And so their concepts are usually corrupted or wrong by virtue of not having a balanced knowledge of the traditions and customs from which these books, that they call holy books, have their origin. And so it has allowed the the papacy operators of the Roman Curia to misrepresent the books to the people, and which has caused a lot of the schism and secularism that people have been suffering from, in society, and this disorder and disruption and this falsely grounded hatred in the name of religions, because people don't get religion, they get dogma. That also must be corrected by the scholars and the people who have goodwill for humanity to tell the truth. And so the truth was told not to reject anyone, but to put things back in their proper perspective so that the people have a true perspective of names of lands and peoples prior to colonial inquisition operations, etc. Whereas much of the knowledge was suppressed and the real history was reconstructed. And they'll call it reconstruction. And people think they're talking about buildings when they're really reconstructing society. And much of this reconstruction has taken place since the Napoleonic Wars, but has accelerated since the mid 1800s. Now that's a fact. And of course, going back to that state of mind of your ancient mothers and fathers will aid you in correcting your concepts about humanity and about the nations of the earth and about international interchange and international trade, which is at the root of much of these wars that the hybrids have been waging and having much to do with their privacy operations and their piracy operations through bottomry instruments like the marriage certificates and the birth certificates bond system created by the Jesuits of Rome to steal the people's estates and their inheritances, etc. And that's again why all of it is done under admiralty and maritime law, because they're not really the people of the land. This is in the constitutions and treaties are dealing with what you call law of the land and the jurisdiction of the land. So they take the people out to sea only on paper through what you would call linguistic and connotative instruments and capitolium or capital. This is why they use the capital letters when they make reference to people and trick people into volunteering their states to the U.S. corporation that they thought was a legitimate government, really the private corporation of the Jesuit order, who answers to the Pope of Rome with the help of the barristers of the British Accredited Registry from Fleet Street, England, which most of you already know. And this is where that tie between Washington, D.C., District of Columbia, Queen of England, and the Vatican, with those 3 stars, that's what that's all about. Modern day Inquisition enforcement by the IRS, stealing the people's resources and draining them, then sacrificing them. And so death and taxes, death of your life, of your political life, via the IRS and via three-letter government agencies, etc., and the taxation imposed, which is disguised tithing to the folks of Rome, all of it is a fraud. Therefore, it is not inevitable. And logically, this is again why the brand system was instituted to take the people out of their proper person, by which they can declare the people civilly dead, though they were not physically dead. And this is where the term civil living mortuus comes in. And of course, the 14th Amendment person, or the man of straw, that people refer to as the all capital letters, and also why the all capital letters is not used, and why when they present an instrument to you in the all caps, they're making reference to the Admiralty maritime or fictional estate that they created on the seas. And this is, again, they go from SEAC to SEEC, the Holy See, of the Pope of Rome pretending to be Horus, or imitating, or what you call calling themselves the vicar or the substitute. So everything they do is really what you would call a fictional substitute of reality. And this is where deception comes in. That's why you don't use the all caps.
I just want to interject. When people order USB drives, and the system we use through PayPal to create the mailing labels, put the information in all lowercase or initial caps or all lowercase.
Yeah.
When it comes out as a label, it's all caps. You can't change it. You can't.
They make it.
You can't. You know. So I want folks to know that when they get an all caps mailing label, I didn't all cap it.
Yeah, they will do that.
The system automatically all caps it.
This is what people need to know, that that the heads of the post offices, etc., are Roman Curia members, and that is done within. When all the institutions have been infiltrated. This is again why it's important for people at large to become cognizant of what's going on, so that you, the people, can yourself start talking about reversion of the state. And this is also where Noble Drawley, the illustrious prophet of these days, make reference to the lost estate and the restoration of your birthright, your nationality, and your birthright. And logically, once you understand birthright, you must understand that you're dealing with civil issues of estate and inheritance if you're going to deal with these matters. Then, of course, you understand trust. Why trusts are so vital in relationship, and also why when these de facto and pseudo men and women running these pseudo government agencies write to you through the mail, through the U.S. mail, and they have a corporation name in all caps that they're actually attacking you. You need to know that. And most of you need to learn how to write rich, because rich just means written instruments, and you rebut that for them to correct that. Because actually what they're doing, you're talking to the dead. They're claiming you dead. Now that's back to the Inquisition operation. And it's done through U.S. agencies, because the U.S. agencies actually are the Vatican. Here we go.
Here's a question from Mentimore L. Wants to know about France versus United States, 1952.
France versus?
Yeah, France v. United States, 1952.
Oh, where they made claim, and they're making claim on territories in the north, etc. And in fact, the United States Corporation actually lost in that claim. You know that, right?
No, I didn't know.
Oh, yes, people need to know that. Yeah, there was a case that come for the international venues, and the U.S. really lost. And of course, they won't teach those things in the public because logically it would expose that these people who have been governing you are de facto, and the concepts that they've taught you in history is also.
So what was the case? What was the case based on? What was it?
Claims on the land. Claims of the land.
So
claims of
was this
jurisdictional.
France, the so-called country, or was it someone whose name was France?
Yeah, France. And the United States presenting itself, the owners presenting it as a country, when in fact it's a private corporation. Of course, they lost, but they won't speak on that because it exposes exposes the fraud. And as a matter of fact, in the future we'll go over that case as a commentary in the future into details for the benefit of the people. Because that's a study within itself.
How do I get the flash drive and be approved? How's the RAM? I've been posting. People are asking about the flash drive. If you look, it's the USD drive that every time you see me put up USD, I'm telling you how to order. So when you see that banner, I'll put it up again. And you're part of House of Reawakening Minds just because you are who you are. We don't have a membership organization.
It's a state of political affairs.
State of being. Just be. Just be, and you are. That's the best way I can explain that.
Because the major, it's sort of like Noble Raleigh says, he came to make you priests unto yourselves. In other words, the real deal of it is part of the work of Noble Raleigh is actually to expose the corruption of the priesthood and present such knowledge as would liberate the people to become their own priests. Because they only lack knowledge. And that's the truth. And this is why a lot of people get confused.